Thank you for watching #Tigray, joining us today for day 230 of the genocide occurring in Tigray, northern region of Ethiopia, which is now becoming, unfortunately, a failed state, if you will. The people of Tigray are suffering immensely, and our program will always either have guests all over the world who are Tagaru diaspora with information or programs or institutions that further the people of Tigray's development all over the world and in Tigray, or we will be coming with up-to-date reports on what's occurring. As I stated, day 230, you cannot overstate what that is. That's over 8 months, essentially, of genocide on the people of Tigray occurring in 2021, modern times, which is unacceptable. Today we'll be coming with up-to-date reports, but please excuse me as I take a second to speak to the Tagaru who speak the native language Tigrinya. I just want to send a little message to those who may not be speaking English or are not as proficient. መጀመሪያ ነገር ሰላም ህዝቢ ትግራይ ኣብ ሙሉእ ዓለም መጀመሪያ ነገር ዓጀቡን ኩሉ ክሓልፍ እዩ ኣብዚ ከቢድ ግዜ ኣቲና ግን ህዝቢ ትግራይ ኣብ ሙሉእ ዓለም ቃልስና እንታይ እዩ ምስ ድምፅና ምስ ኢንፎርሜሽን ሼር ጌርና ፖስት ጌርና እዚ ቃልስና እዩ ግድነት እዩ ስራሕና እዩ ዓጀቡን ኩሉ ክሓልፍ እዩ ደግና እና ኣብ እንግሊዝኛ ተቀጽልየ ግን ሼር ጌርኩም ፖስት ጌርኩም ምስ መንእሰይ ደቂ ትግራይ ዳያስፖራ ወይ ካልእ ሰብ ኢንፎርሜሽን ደልዩ ሼር ጌርኩም ፖስት ጌርኩም በጣም ይቀንል እና ኣብ እንግሊዝኛ ተቀጽልየ እንደና Today we have unfortunately day by day we are finding more and more information that shows what the dictator, unelected leader of Ethiopia's plan is, Abiy Ahmed. It is to play a game of misinformation and to devastate the people of Tigray. So we're going to start with this article on, because there's been a lot of propaganda going around that the people of Tigray, whose families are suffering every day, are creating TPLF motivated lies and misinformation, when in fact it is proven time and time again the fascist regime, federal unelected leadership of Ethiopia is pushing Amharic biased information with fake accounts and et cetera, pushing lies. What they are accusing the people of Tigray, Tagaru, all over the world of doing, in fact. They are the ones perpetrating this crime. So this first article today is Today News Africa. So it talks about how Facebook has removed a lot of Ethiopian pages linked to network founded by fascist Abiy Ahmed in crackdown on misinformation. You can't make this up. The man who claims there are lies being cast on his country, on his people, the people that he does not protect, mind you, he is in fact the one spreading lies. So Facebook essentially found fake accounts in total, as you'll see here, 65 Facebook accounts, 52 pages, 27 groups, 32 Instagram accounts, about 1.1 million accounts followed one or more of these pages, and roughly more than 700,000, 766,000 accounts were members of one or more of these groups. They found that the network used duplicate fake accounts to post and comment on its own content. The operation increased activity in 2020 and 2021. Mind you, this is when the failed state of Ethiopia began to essentially implode and catch on fire, when the region of Tigray was attacked by Eritrean and federal Ethiopian forces and Arab Emirate drones and Somali forces trained by Isaias Afwerki, warlord and dictator of Eritrea, and states increased during that time period, with some content being rated false by independent fact checkers and labeled as misleading. Independent fact checkers. What else tells you it's unbiased? But I'll continue on. This network, mind you, posted primarily in Amharic about news and current events in Ethiopia, including Prosperity Party, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, and criticism of Egypt and Sudan related to Ethiopia's mega dam project, which is the Grand Renaissance Dam, which has been a huge cause of international news, because Abiy Ahmed is essentially battling both these states on multiple fronts in terms of the dam itself and also land in western Ethiopia, where Sudan is claiming they, in fact, are entitled to certain portions of that land, where that, in fact, the dam is. So it also says they also posted critical commentary about various opposition politicians and groups in Ethiopia, including Oromo Liberation Front, Ethiopian Democratic Party, and the Tigray People's Liberation Front, TPLF, among others. Most recently, they commented about protests against the U.S. sanctions on Ethiopia. This is, sad to say the least. Facebook essentially saying the decision to crack down is a response to behavior that violates community standards regarding coordinated, inauthentic behavior, and particularly regarding falsified accounts and behavior, as well as misinformation. This is case in point of what is occurring currently. Ethiopia is committing atrocities in Tigray currently. We're on day 230 of a genocide on the people. Innocent civilians, old people, children being raped, killed, crops being burned. These are war crimes, crimes against humanity. Continues basically saying the Information Network Security Agency, founded by fascist Abiy Ahmed, was created with the intention of monitoring dissent, and now lists its mission as to protect the national interest through building capability that enables safeguard the country's information and information infrastructures. What part of this is democracy? This is an absolute sham of election coming up in Ethiopia, which is not going to include Tigray. That does not seem democratic. But this case in point, this article by Mr. Pitcher here, who is in fact a U.S. and global politics writer at Today News Africa, who specializes in covering the White House, but he also is political science and also has a concentration in global politics. So this man has no reason to be biased again for your pro-genocide, pro-fascist Abiy Ahmed's illegitimate government supporters. This is called reporting and accurate news. Our first true article, we always want to cover, battling the misinformation out there, because for days and months we've heard the people of Tigray are working for TPLF essentially. Your mothers aren't getting raped, your sisters aren't getting raped, your brothers aren't dying. This is all a means to save TPLF, when in fact the people of Tigray are the ones fighting the federal forces. The people of Tigray are fighting for what Abiy Ahmed is claiming: law and order, sovereignty. The people of Tigray are fighting for this. So our first true article on goes to the Washington Post. This is a huge article in terms of the Washington Post is a credible organization in terms of a news outlet, and also comes with a lot of in terms of viewers. So this is an opinion piece. Starvation has become a weapon of war in Ethiopia. U.S. action is urgent. This article was on June 15th, 2021. So it is recent. And it highlights on what we've been talking about for days, for weeks, for months during this genocide. States for months, humanitarian agencies have been warning famine could spread in the Ethiopian region of Tigray if government forces and allied troops from neighboring Eritrea did not end a brutal campaign to subjugate the area. Subjugate the area. That is the impact of the campaign. Now that emergency has arrived, UN agencies reported last week that more than 350,000 of Tigray's 6 million people are living in famine conditions, 2 million more at risk. Some 140,000 of these facing starvation are children, according to UNICEF. This is a reputable organization that fights for children. 33,000 at imminent risk of death. This is an atrocity occurring. This humanitarian catastrophe continues, which UN officials say could rival the epic famine of 1984, is a deliberate result of the military campaign in Tigray since late last year by the government of fascist Abiy Ahmed and the allied Eritrean regime of fascist warlord Isaias Afwerki. According to US and UN officials and press reporting, the forces of the two governments, this is according to US and UN officials and press reporting, the forces of the two governments have burned farmers' fields and stores and slaughtered or stolen livestock. These are war crimes. This is not opinion. This is international law. You cannot include civilians in the midst of a war, especially in terms of slaughtering or stealing livestock, in terms of burning crops and fields, and raping and subjugating the people. This is absurd. They have also systematically blocked aid deliveries to the parts of Tigray not under government control. This is a deliberate. Eritrean forces, the UN humanitarian coordinator said last week, are trying to deal with the Tigrayan population by starving them. This is fact, pinpoint what they're doing. This is their strategy. Starve the people, rape the people, loot the people into subjugation, submission, devastation. Forced starvation of children is only the latest atrocity they continue. Ethiopian and Eritrean forces do not leave out Amhara militia either, have resorted to in what so far has been a failed effort to crush TPLF, which has controlled the region for decades and dominated Ethiopia's government until Mr. Abiy illegitimately came to power in 2018, mind you. The United Nations has also reported mass rapes, disgusting atrocity of women, massacres of civilians, and ethnic cleansing. More than 2 million people, 2 million, have fled their homes, leaving fields behind. Tigrayan men are being rounded up and summarily executed. This is fact and point, proven with video footage, witness testimony, bodies in mass graves thrown off of cliffs. Everywhere there's evidence for those who continue to deny genocide. Continues, the United States and other Western governments have attempted in vain to stop this scorched earth assault. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken began publicly demanding, these are things we covered, by the way, withdrawal of Eritrean and Ethiopian militia forces from Tigray soon after taking office. There was a lobby sent to Ethiopia to try to meet with the unreasonable, illegitimate leader Abiy Ahmed. And last month, also, Mr. Blinken, the Secretary of State, again announced visa sanctions, which we touched on our program, against Ethiopian and Eritrean officials involved in abuses or the blocking of food aid, which has been proven with witness testimony again. Video footage from news outlets such as CNN, Reuters has come with articles as well on this, providing information and proof of this. The European Union, it continues, and the United States have suspended hundreds of millions of dollars in aid, but that is not enough. Because, as it continues, none of it has worked. Mr. Abiy promised in March that Eritrean troops would leave Tigray. We are in June, almost July. He promised in March that the foreign forces, in his fake crusade for law and order, his fake crusade for sovereignty and protection of the Constitution and democracy, are in his own country, killing his own citizens, raping, looting them. March. How many months does it take for them to leave? So he continues, it continues an article that Eritrean troops will leave Tigray, he says, but they're still there. So our Amhara militias from a neighboring Ethiopian region, which we touched on, they deserve as much blame for their atrocities and crimes against humanity that they are committing. It continues that have engaged in ethnic cleansing as well as blocking food. The ethnic cleansing has occurred in Western Tigray, in Maikadra, and Hamara areas. This is where the ethnic cleansing, the driving out of people in droves to create more Amhara households and to push out the Tagaru in the western parts of Tigray in an effort to regain land that they believe is theirs, in the midst of a genocide, in the midst of a foreign force behind their country. This is what's occurring. We cannot overstate it. Meanwhile, China and Russia have blocked action by the UN Security Council, which, to its shame, has yet to publicly meet on the Tigrayan crisis. This is what we were touching on last week. If you are a democratic state, a democratic country, you are a democratic leader, you are looking for democratic equal elections, how can your biggest allies be strong-armed fascist governments who do not believe in the rights of free speech, democracy, protection of civilians? China and Russia are your biggest supporters, causing the UN Security Council to stay silent on this matter. We cannot tolerate this anymore. We have to put pressure for them to meet on this. Continues the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, Linda Thomas Greenfield. If you're not familiar with her, she is among those warning of another massive famine, which we talked about. Cannot make the same mistake twice, she said. But we are making the mistake. The people of Tigray are starving now. We cannot let Ethiopia starve, she states. And Mr. Blinken also pledged further actions from the United States if those responsible for the crisis did not reverse course. Though Ethiopia has been a valuable U.S. ally, the Biden administration now has no choice but to take that action. This is case in point what we're talking about. It is true. Sadly, the illegitimate government of Ethiopia has predictably chosen to stay true to their fascist roots, to continue their scorched earth assault, their subjugation, devastation of the people of Tigray in an effort to, control and keep the people quiet, essentially. They are raping and looting. They are devastating the region. The U.S. has to take action, and we need to do our part. And a portion of that has to be through social media, which a lot of Tagaro are doing. You can go to Amna Tigray and get this information in terms of any petitions that Tagaro around the world are pushing to do, or also you can go to, there's a link tree, I Stand With Tigray as well. And I'm sure there are plenty of other resources, but really petitioning the U.S. Leadership to take action on this regime, because they are not budging. Because what we know is they're playing a game, as we just looked at this last article, of misinformation, of creating confusion. But we know the truth. The people are dying. We need to take action. So our next article here touches kind of on over. So the misinformation that's being created. So this is from Reuters, another news outlet. I have to say it every time because there's constant threat on the credibility of what we're talking about, when in fact it's true. These are legitimate articles, information being shared. So this article is from June 16th, 2021. Most farmers in Ethiopia's Tigray are planting crops, says government after UN famine warning. This is a joke. He states, the Ethiopia State Agriculture Minister said on Tuesday a majority of farmers in the Tigray region were planting crops on time. This is after the United Nations warned of famine in the area following conflict that has displaced more than 2 million people. Imagine in a place where there is a war zone, where 2 million people have been displaced, for the government to have someone come out who is supposed to be an alleged state agriculture minister state something so ridiculous that 70% of the farmers have started their farming to cover long season crops. This is just not reasonable. This is in a press conference in the capital of Addis Ababa. This is a hand of Abiy Ahmed, a puppet, spreading just information that cannot be even fathomable. The federal government expects a significant portion, they state, of farmers who fled the fighting to return to their land in the next month. What has stopped in the last month? Has Eritrean forces left, as we said previously? Because they have not. They're still devastating, looting the region, burning crops, telling people you cannot plant crops or you will die. What has changed in the last month? Please educate us. However, they state, planting remains delayed in 15 of Tigray's 61 districts in northern parts of the region. Illegitimate fascist Abiy Ahmed said. An official from Ethiopia's National Meteorological Agency told the same news conference that it forecasts normal and above normal rainfall throughout Tigray during the approaching rainy season, another positive sign for the next harvest. Thank God there is going to be rain, because in the midst of a genocide, you will be able to plant your crops. Congratulations, they said. This is a joke. Their analysis contrasted sharply with one published by United Nations agencies and aid groups, mind you, last Thursday, that more than 350,000 people in Tigray were suffering famine conditions, with millions more at risk. Maybe there's confusion on where Tigray is. Does Abiy Ahmed know? Does the federal government know where Tigray is? That is where the Eritrean forces are in a virtual war zone, where they can do as they please with no one to answer to. Prime Minister, who is an unelected fascist leader, Abiy Ahmed, said in a statement later on Tuesday that Ethiopia's strong agricultural production and economic growth in recent years, which he has nothing to do with, behind you, ensured that the country could withstand the food gap in Tigray and other areas of the country currently experiencing conflict. He's delusional. Thus, the famine that occurred in 1984 could not be comparable with the current food gap in Ethiopia, especially in Tigray, he said. This is just absurd. What world is this man living in? The United Nations top humanitarian official told Reuters last week that Eritrean soldiers and local fighters in Tigray were deliberately blocking supplies to more than 1 million people in areas outside government control. Food is definitely being used as a weapon of war. Again, we talked about this. This is proven. How can he say that, you know, all the crops are going to be planted in the midst of this? Tigrayan officials have also said that Eritrean soldiers, this is what I talked about, are blocking farmers in some areas from planting crops. This is what I said. How can what they're saying be true when they're being prevented from planting crops? And if they're not being prevented, they can't. They're in the midst of a genocide war zone. Fighting has occurred since November. We're in day 230. People have abandoned their fields. They did not even get to do their main harvesting. The blame has been spread all over, but what we know is this. Amhara militia, Eritrean forces, foreign forces, mind you, the blanket bombing with drones of highly populated civilian areas, and the just total devastation of the people of Tigray is occurring. How can they be planting their crops? This is a small picture into what they are doing, the misinformation campaign they're pushing. Our next article is also on Reuters. Ethiopian UN envoy says Eritrean troops are to leave Tigray. June 16th, this article is. I'm not pulling an article from March. You would be surprised, because Abiy Ahmed, fascist leader, said they would be leaving Tigray in March. Now they are leaving soon, in June. When is soon? Eritrean troops, they say, in Ethiopia's Tigray region are expected to definitely leave soon, Ethiopia's UN envoy said, after a top UN official told the Security Council on Tuesday that Eritrea's soldiers were using starvation as a weapon of war. Again, outgoing UN aid chief told the 15-member council in a private briefing that no one should be surprised to see a rerun of that 1984 famine, which we talked about. If violence in Tigray does not stop and Eritrean troops do not withdraw, this is what we need. Clear and case in point. It's not confusing, it's not hard. Eritrean troops must leave the region. Rape is being used systematically to terrorize and brutalize women and girls. Eritrean soldiers are using starvation as a weapon of war. Displaced people are being rounded up, beaten, and threatened. It's clear as day what's occurring. The civilians, not the fighters of Tigray, who are being devastated right now. The old women, the women in general, the young children, the sick, the people who need aid or have to travel days and weeks to get to a hospital if they can, and if they have supplies there, are the ones who are suffering. Eritrea's UN mission, which I'm not sure how they have one for a dictator state, in New York did not immediately respond to a request for comment, unsurprisingly. Eritrea said in April that it had agreed to start withdrawing its troops from Tigray. So March, I'll rerun it. Abiy Ahmed said that Eritrea was leaving. Eritrea in April said that they were leaving. April, we just passed. May, we just passed. June, we're halfway through. When are they leaving? In April, Eritrea's UN ambassador, another puppet for Isaias Afwerki, the warlord, rejected allegations of sexual violence and starvation by Eritrean troops as false and outrageous. Again, another person who is the hand of a dictator doesn't have to provide proof or credibility behind her statements. She just states something with no regard to actual information and witness testimonies that are out there. And for her to be a woman is even more embarrassing and egregious. Ethiopia's UN ambassador, I don't even want to say their name, who took part in the council discussion, said the Eritrean withdrawal is a matter of sorting out some technical and procedural issues. Our expectation is that they will definitely leave soon. My expectation is that you are lying again. This is a joke. Unfortunately, this is case in point what we are dealing with day in and day out. The people of Tigray have no one to speak for them except for the diaspora all over the world and anyone who has become an ally over these 8 months. And for that, we have to continue to push and speak and be the voice for them, voice for the voiceless, because there are countless, as I stated, puppets out there who put out misinformation or do not provide context in what they're talking about and just simply state your family is not dying. There is no genocide. There is no starvation. My statement can come from, just how I feel about it or what, master head in charge, Abiy Ahmed, fascist leader says, or Isaias Afwerki, warlord says. Anyway, they continue that his spokesperson basically said that Ethiopia's government had granted unfettered aid access to Tigray and was grateful for international humanitarian help. We just talked about, there's proof that the aid is being blocked, but I guess, again, there's case in point, there's no information being processed by these people. The informal council meeting on Tuesday requested by Ireland, thank you, by the way, was its 6th private session of the crisis since fighting broke out in November. 6th, and nothing is being done. No public session is being held due to the fascist supporters around the world. Eritrean troops, they continue, entered the conflict to support the Ethiopian government. What world is this acceptable? What democracy is this acceptable? To devastate your region with a foreign country and state it's a democratic, constitutional, law and order internal operation. Internal in itself means you are fighting for the sovereignty of the country, within your country, with your soldiers. not with other people, not with foreign countries, not with people who are coming in and driving out in droves, cattle and furniture, and this has all been documented. Nothing of this is made up from gossip. This is documented with pictures, articles, reports. Continues, all evidence now points towards an unfolding humanitarian catastrophe, which we talked about before. People in Tigray are starving. Ireland's UN ambassador stated, we cannot delay, we have to ensure that no more lives are lost. I cannot agree more. If you are a person who believes in the equality of all people, if you are a person, even if you believe in the Ethiopian government, then you believe they are under the responsibility to ensure all citizens are at all times, in the midst of war, in the midst of peace, taken care of in terms of that they are not subjugated and being forced into essentially mass migration, being pushed from their houses, being starved intentionally by foreign troops, drones raining down upon them. No government in the world can state that they are not responsible for ensuring the safety of their citizens. In fact, the Ethiopian government has stated that they are, in fact, responsible for that. The people of Tigray were citizens of Ethiopia, if I am not mistaken, on November 3rd, before you started this fake law and order operation, returned to save the law and order that we had before November 3rd, remove these fascist, Isaias Afwerki, military insurgency in all of Tigray. Remove these troops immediately. There's no question. Amhara militia must be removed from Tigray immediately in order to prevent the catastrophe that is unfolding currently and unfortunately looks like will be coming soon, the starvation of the people of Tigray. His spokesperson for the Ethiopian government, again, he says the situation in Tigray did not warrant the Security Council's attention. And it continues and talks about how Russia and China, again, are the reason this has been prevented. But what we know is fact-based here. It's in the article again. The violence in Tigray is killing thousands of civilians. More than 2 million from their homes have been forced from their homes, pardon me. And this is a humanitarian crisis, case in point. And the most, the quote that really gets your attention here is, it is not drought or locusts causing this hunger, but the decisions of those in power. That means those in power can also end the suffering. This is exactly true. This is what we've been saying. This is a man-made famine, man-made crisis, and it has to be stopped by those who have created this crisis. Our last article for today, as we cover, again, the news up to date in terms of what's occurring on the ground in Tigray, what the people are facing, is essentially the European Union sent an envoy to Tigray about a few months ago, right? And in one of these meetings, an EU official said that Ethiopia vowed to wipe out Tigrayan people for 100 years. Imagine how a government official can say something this vile, something this misinformed, misled, to think this could even be possible, but also for this to even be his mission as a government official. These people are your citizens. You cannot describe these people with anything other than cowardly. This is Mr. Haavisto, his name. He's also Finland's foreign affairs minister. He was the European Union special envoy to Ethiopia during that time. And he told the European Parliament committee about the comments made in talks with Abiy Ahmed, the fascist leader, and other officials in February. Okay, so it was a few months ago. If you wipe out your national minority, well, what is that? You cannot destroy all the people, you cannot destroy all the population in Tigray, he states. And I think that's very obvious that we have to react, because it looks like for us like ethnic cleansing. It is a very, very serious act if this is true. This is what he stated, he said. And Ethiopia's foreign ministry denounced, of course, no, we didn't say that. He said it's ludicrous that hallucinations of sorts or a lapse in memory of some kind. Ooh, the statements that come from these people sometimes really just makes you wonder how they can have any position of power. Unfortunately, this is what the people of Tigray are facing, as I stated. We have to continue to speak. We have to continue to be a voice for them. Please share, please post this with all people around the world, whether they are Tagaro diaspora or if they are, just English speakers who are interested in crimes that are being committed against innocent civilians, against, young women who are being raped in vile, disgusting fashion, against the burning of crops, the devastation of innocent elderly people who are being killed in large numbers, or intentionally starving the people of Tigray, young and old. Thank you for watching #Tigray. We will always have some message to share, whether, as I stated in the beginning, it's going to be touching on the youth all over the world and the work that they are doing, or it's going to touch on the up-to-date devastation of the people of Tigray until the Eritrean troops have been removed, until Amhara militias are out of the region. The illegitimate fascist leader of Ethiopia, Abiy Ahmed, cannot state that he is in fact doing anything besides the intentional devastation, subjugation of the people of Tigray, Tagaro. He's fighting TDF, all Tagaro, not just TPLF, and that's a fact. It's proven. We know who this fight is against. It's against the people of Tigray, the will of the people of Tigray, the freedom of the people of Tigray. And we will continue to share news and continue to be a voice, as I stated. I am your host, Allah Wune. I want to thank you for watching again. Please share, please post again, as our work, as I stated in the beginning, is to share the information and make sure that the people of Tigray never have to worry. Did the people of Tigray diaspora all over the world speak for them during the difficult time when they could not get food, when they could not have the simple rights of all humans, which is safety in their home? They're being attacked for being Tagaro. I want to thank you again, and until we meet again, this is #Tigray.
نحنا حزب تግራይ كان ورق تفترنا إنا لو مين السعر صراحين السعر لو مين نبركخ صراحين نبركخ هذا وسرعتس أي جزءنا ندخل حجي هذا وسرعت كنا تفق أي حتى نسلمتنا سوينا إن بعد زيما بقينا حلو لو 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 نالو نوعت عيننا أنا معبد كم يقرنا هذا وسرعت حجي نبركخ لو مين نبركخ صراحين نبركخ